Alright, welcome back, Annie and everybody. This is Lynn and Otter here to do another episode of One Last Night. It took me a while to finally figure out how to get this new update on itch for myself, and so that's kind of the reason you hadn't seen it, even though the latest build had come out a while ago. But that's neither here nor there. I'm finally ready to start playing. I think I might have figured out why some of the past few videos had some wonky audio. It's been a while, and I think I had my gain a bit too high. Regardless, all that's behind us now, and all that's in front of us is the next chapter. Last we left off, Dorian was realizing after finishing his own battle that there were no bows for Xavier to choose from when it came time for his battle. In other words, Xavier was weaponless. And I had almost forgotten to put my timer on. Dear Marshall, I'm scared. We're about to reach 2 years together. A milestone for any young couple. It's something I should be ecstatic for. Knowing we've been together so long feels like both an impossibility and a blessing. Having you love me every step of the way. Which is why I'm even more scared. This was how long things lasted when I was still with Alistair. That name still angers me. I thought things were going well then too. But I was blindsided. I don't want the same thing to happen with you. I believe in your feelings, and I trust you to communicate with me. I do. But there's a nagging sensation at the back of my mind that says I don't deserve you. That you'll abandon me like he did. It's made me think a lot about myself, honestly. I'm scared of you leaving, just as I was when I was with him at the start. I've had various friends come and go in my life, which has only fueled that fear. Even my parents are gone now. I've been surrounded by people, but have never forged connections for long. I have you and very few friends I could truly call close. In truth, that's all I could ever want, really. Yet I'm scared of how long they'll all last. Everyone before has left me, so why would now be any different? What's changed to make them stay? It's the thoughts like these that bother me, that haunt me on days like today when the voice gets too loud. I understand some people have to leave, whether by choice or by forces out of their control. I know none of them are lying, or I know none of them are trying to abandon me, which is not what I'm scared of. Since we've been together, it's shown me that I can grow and move on, that I can be who I was while being someone new. I can change. So after thinking through it again and again and again, I know what I'm afraid of. I know what keeps me up at night, stressing me out as you dream peacefully beside me. I'm scared to be alone. I'm scared of having nobody with me, nobody I can share a true connection with. I'm scared of not having you with me, I'm scared of not having you with me, Marshall. There's never been anybody who I've gotten as close to as I have with you. I'll do my best to quiet these fears for now. To look forward to what our lives together have in store. That's what I'm going to focus on. Just please, Marshall, though you'll never read this, promise me one thing. Never leave me alone. Love, Dorian. No. The word escaped my lips in a hushed tone, drowned out by the sound of the crowd. At the moment, all I could hear was my own thoughts. There had to be something I could do to stop this, to get Xavier out of this fight. He'd practiced fencing with a stick once. That was nowhere near enough experience, despite how fast of a learner he was. I still struggled in my fight, and there was no telling what fated he'd be pitted against. The anxiety began to build in my chest, drawing from the fear that always lingered there. I can't lose Xavier right now. I just can't. No, I won't. If this is meant to be my story, then I sure as hell am not letting his chapter in it end this soon. I stopped my retreat to the locker room, turning back to face Alistair as a last-ditch idea rooted itself in my mind. Oh my gosh, is he gonna... His eyes met mine instantly, as if he were waiting for this. He raised a hand to quiet the crowd. I'll do it. He blinked, the words momentarily catching him off guard. He'll do what, exactly? I'll take Xavier's place. An uneasy silence fell over the arena as its observers began processing what I'd just announced. They'd seen my last fight, see how bad it I'd been. I was a bleeding and bruised mess standing before them all, asking to fight for their amusement once more. It was pathetic. As if on cue with that thought, the whole crowd burst into laughter at my suggestion. Not a single one of them was taking me seriously. They didn't matter right now, however. The only one I needed to convince was Alistair. Isn't this what you wanted Wonderland to be? A show full of trauma and suspense as the people at your mercy fight for their lives? Wouldn't you derive more entertainment from watching me get further injuries for the sake of someone close to me? The crowd began to quiet once more as I finished my statement, hoping to appeal to the lion who hated me. It was a desperate gamble for sure, but I refused to lose someone I'd bonded with so fast. The last person that happened with was Marshall. I shook the thought from my head, pulling myself back to the present. These were things I could go over later when I wasn't trying to save someone's life. Alistair seemed to be pondering my query, using this moment to draw all attention to himself once more. It's a good argument, I'll give you that. A man desperately pleading to spare his lover's life to sacrifice his own, especially when said man has wronged me in the past. I bit my tongue to keep from retaliating. Clearly in his eyes, I was the villain. But I fell to my knees instantly as a blunt object collided with the back of my head, sending stars throughout my vision. I'd been so focused on Alistair I'd forgotten about the guards. That's not how things work here. Look at yourself. You were barely able to stand as is, and there's definitely no hope of that now. The lion chuckled, clearly amused over the fact that he was responsible for my condition. The guards lifted me by the arms, beginning to drag me across the arena as I tried to get a grip on my bodily functions. You believe yourself to be all that, some hero for the ages who puts others first. You think as though you're the protagonist of some story. By all means. Let me be the first to break it to you, Dorian. You're pathetic. Try as you might, you exist as nothing but a burden to those around you. You drag everyone down, if it means you can raise to the top and be better. It doesn't matter who you step on if it makes you look like you're in the right. Everyone but you can see that. Look at the man who tried to defend you, Xavier. See him for what he truly is. He couldn't even believe in you to do the fight on your own. He seeks control and nothing less. Anger started to bubble up as I listened to his words, my senses beginning to recover from the blow as he continued his monologue. I'll say this once more, Dorian, so listen well. You are not the protagonist. Grow up and realize that, especially right now. More importantly, know when and where your place is. You had your time in the spotlight, but right now, this is my show, and what I say goes. We'd finally reached the locker room again, the guards wasting no time in throwing my body through the door into the ground. I hit it hard, panting as the aches in my body washed over me. And I say, we give our next competitor the chance to show he's more than this companion believes he is. Once more, everyone give a round of applause for the lovely Xavier! Uh-oh. I laid there as the crowd outside roared in approval over the speech, Alistair no doubt reveling in the gratification. Other than the physical effects of what had just happened, I felt the mental ones hitting hard at my own insecurities. Despite it being years since we last spoke, I trusted him with all my fears and worries, and he clearly hadn't forgotten them since. Maybe he'd even planned to use them against me like this one day. I've always worried about being the one that people have to lag behind for, that they're waiting for me to catch up to their pace. I've never been the best at anything, despite how I've tried. I focused and improved some skills, but I couldn't help but think I'd never be worth it. Even now, I knew what I'd done was idiotic. While my heart was in the right place, Alistair was right. I hadn't shown Xavier any faith in his abilities. I should have known from my experience with him that this past week that no matter what, the Bat isn't a quitter. He has the spirit to keep going. I don't know what motivates him the most, but I know I can trust him. He could do this. The sound of footsteps approaching drew me back into my pained body. The aches of the wounds and the blunt trauma starting to settle in were a harsh reminder of reality. Oop. Go charge my laptop. Out of the way! Do none of you have decency anymore? The familiar figures of Shen and Treat approached me, shoving aside the other prisoners who'd made no attempts to help me whatsoever. Aw, he has friends. They crouched to either side of me, helping me back to my feet. Hey man, you still with us? Think you can stand? Yes, and yes. I should be able to. The moment they let go, I stumbled with my first step. Oh, if you're fine, then I'm straight. Treat, get his other arm. The Wolverine shot them a glare, but obliged. The two of them propping me up as we walked towards the exit at the back. I wanted to protest, to stay and watch Xavier's fight to cheer him on, but I knew that he'd put my health over that. I needed to rest and believe he'd be okay. I wouldn't lose him too. Everyone just watched as we passed, trying to avoid catching the fire of the ignited should they help us. It really goes to show people are inherently selfish by nature. Very few people are willing to stick their neck out just to help someone in need. It sickened me. The guard standing at the exit door didn't budge as we approached, glaring at us with disinterest. Hey, there's no exit until Wonderland is over for the day. We know that, but our friend here is injured after his fight. He needs to be taken to the nurse and treated. The second bandit rolled his eyes before giving me a once-over. Oh, I don't see anything life-threatening. He should be fine to stay. I could hear the growl in Treat's throat as he responded as calmly as he could. Dang it, I can't do a growl. One of your colleagues just bludgeoned the back of his head, likely giving him a concussion. He needs a proper place to rest. Sounds like what he needs is to walk it off. Nobody's leaving this room, understand? Besides, the last thing we'd do is listen to someone like yourself. Get lost! Treat's muzzle drew back in a snarl, looking as though he was ready to tear them apart before I felt a small shake behind my neck. Shen drew their companion's attention back to them, bringing Treat back out of the anchor to take a deep breath. The collected look returned to his face as he made eye contact with Shen. May I? Treat smiled. Huh? Go right ahead. Excuse me. Shen took their arm off my shoulder and slipped away. Taking a step forward toward the guards. They put on that smile from earlier and looked the second bandit in the eyes. I'll say this once, so hopefully you two morons can understand. Let us take him to the nurse, or else. The bandit sneered at the hyena. Or else what? What's a slut like you going to do? Shen's grin widened. This. Wait, his voice isn't that deep. This. Before any of us could even process what happened, whoa, Shen's fist connected hard with the nose of the bandit. The force combined with the surprise of it sent him stumbling back to the wall as he crumpled instantly and cried out in pain. Ow! Me! Already have. Didn't know someone was capable of finishing that fast. I'd say it was flattering if it wasn't so pitiful. Here the guard quickly recovered from the sudden shock and raised his club to attack the hyena. Shen was already on them, though. The guard doubled over as the hyena slammed their fist into his gut, bringing down an elbow from above to send him to the ground in a heap. Holy crud, Shen can fight. One out of breath and the other clutching a likely broken nose. Shen crouched and grabbed them by the head fur. Now, this is a sight I'm more than familiar with. Two getting what's coming to them. They smashed the heads of the two together before standing up and brushing off their hands as the guards groaned in pain. Oh, look at that. You're even moaning, too. The other guards had begun to make their way towards us to get to Shen, but they raised their hands in defense. Sorry. All good now. We'll go back to being good little captives. Shen backed away and gestured for us to follow, Tree turning me to help me along. Wow. While I was surprised by Shen's sudden aggressiveness, I was more surprised by the fact the guards had listened to them and left us alone. Looking back, I could even see a few laughing at the crumpled bandits. Maybe it wasn't that bad of a strategy to sleep with the enemy. Treat and Shen exchanged a look as they helped me to a bench far from the door to sit, smiles on both their faces, and I couldn't help but find myself joining in. Those smiles soon erupted into laughter for a few moments, all of us reveling in what had just happened and the absurdity of it. I forgot I could do this. Thumbnail material. Seeing you beat their will never get old to me. Me neither, in more ways than one. Treat turned to me in an effort to move the conversation elsewhere. First things first, I'm the realist. Let me examine your injuries, Dorian. You can probably answer some questions we too... First things first, let me examine your injuries, Dorian. You can probably answer some questions we have too in the process. Only if I get to ask some of my own. Deal. And make it fast. I need to see Xavier's fight. He deserves at least one comforting face in the sea of enemies. Let's get to it then. The Wolverine started his inspection from the back of my head, checking the trauma there first. I'll cut to the thing I'm most curious about. You have a past with that freak of a ringmaster. He stated he knew you. That would be because he does, and we do. How? That's my ex-boyfriend. Treat's fingers pressed a little too hard on the bruise as I said that, causing me to wince. Sorry, but also repeat that? You dated him? His head trauma might be worse than we thought if he's this delusional. I glared at the hyena. Believe me, nobody regrets that decision more than me. I wasted 2 years of my life on his bull. Shen whistled in amazement. Are you colorblind then? Or is red just your favorite color of flag? I sighed, trying not to move too much so Tree could finish his inspection faster. He wasn't different. He was different back then. Nothing like how he is now. Or you were just so blinded by your own feelings, you didn't want to believe you were seeing his true self as things progressed. I assume that's why you ended things. I assume that's why you ended things? Not exactly. And what happened? A loud roar from the crowd outside caught my attention, taking me out of the conversation and back to what was happening in the meanwhile. I'll tell you more when Xavier's back. Is your inspection done now so we can cheer him on, Doctor? You're not in great condition and should be resting, but your wounds have stopped bleeding for the moment. And as long as you don't move too roughly, you'll be fine. Then let's go. With Treat's help, I stood up and carefully began making my way over to the windows. Wait, are you actually a doctor or even one in training? Nope, I was in school for biochemistry. I ended up taking a class on the anatomics. I ended up taking a class on the anatomics of anthropospecies to help my studies. Where'd you study? I had a scholarship over at Gallhaven due to my... I had a scholarship over at Gallhaven due to my rugby skills. I've been right in my earlier assumption that he'd attended there then. I wanted to ask him more, but that could wait until after Xavier's fight. As some of the prisoners saw us approach the windows, they stepped out of the way. They had likely seen our earlier confrontation and wanted to steer clear of us. Given that there was only one person on the field as the door to it opened and the weapon rack was brought in, it wasn't hard to find Xavier there. The bat was standing with a sword in his hands, both tightly gripping the handle. I'd expected to find fear on his face, worry of what was to come. Instead, his expression was full of anger. I had seen glimpses of it before, when we'd met the silence and were captured, but it was nothing compared to the fury that resided there now. Alistair was already drawing a note from the bowl, about to call out the crate number of which fated that Xavier would fight was hidden inside.
Door number 7!
Just like when it was my turn, the crate above opened the door using ropes to allow the monster inside to escape and wreak havoc. We all waited with bated breath to see what would exit those doors. Breathe, Xavier. You can handle this. I tried my hardest to keep my heartbeat steady as I anxiously waited whatever monster was coming for me. Without a bow, I was already at a disadvantage. Add that to my broken finger and it dropped my chances of winning even lower. This whole tournament was about chance, really. It was luck of the draw which fated would come my way, and I had to be prepared. I tightened my grip on my longsword. I tightened my grip on the longsword I'd chosen to fight with, the daylight gleaming off the well-kept blade. It was my best choice. I'd handled a few to test them out, finding they were surprisingly light. They must have only weighed a few pounds each. I had enough arm muscle to use it due to the lightness, and although the fencing lessons with Dorian was all I had to work with, it was better base knowledge for me to use comparatively. With this sword, I could use it either one-handed, or, the more comfortable option for me, two-handed. I'd leave the former to desperate situations. Oh, I wish I had a shield. Oh, a sudden thud from the door startled me as sand began to fly up from the arena floor, heading to my left rather than directly towards me. It was hard to tell how large the creature was, likely due to the fact that it had been curled into a ball. I guess about the size of the average humanoid, maybe a little wider. What made it even harder to determine was that it was rolling. It reminded me almost of a pill bug like I'd find when playing in the garden as a kid. You mean a roly-poly, except this was much scarier in comparison. The fated was a blur of pale flesh as it circled me, stirring up sand as it moved to partially obscure my vision. The large chitinous scales that made up its exterior were a matte white and gray, rough enough that as not to shine. I stood firm in the center, watching it keeping moving in circles, wondering how was it planning to attack. Holy cow, look at all this, look at this cinemacism. The fated suddenly stopped and charged straight for me, turning much faster than I would have expected. I raised my sword in preparation to parry an attack. And at the last moment, the creature flung itself from the ground and into the air. I brought my blade up in an attempt to block the blow, the realization that it was using its entire body as a weapon becoming painfully obvious. Only for it to seemingly miss me entirely. The creature landed behind me with a thud and bounced, checking into me as I was turning to deflect. I stumbled forward in pain, the sheer blunt force of the attack nearly knocked me over. My shoulder ached from the blow, meaning it would be even harder to parry an attack. A dodge was the better option to win. A small sense of pride at my battle tactics surged in my chest. I was beginning to sound experienced when in reality, a few fantasy novels could do wonders in strategy. Now wasn't the time for that, though. I could see it preparing to make its next strike. I'd have to try and hit it with my blade next. I knew how it preferred to attack now, and I needed to check if my sword could penetrate the shell next. meaning I had time to dodge. Meaning I had to time this dodge right. It pivoted towards me again, building its momentum before launching. I waited longer this time to see what it would do, waiting for the time to step into place. Now! And I dodged to the left just barely, swinging my sword in a slash as I were about to hit a home run. As if I were about to hit a home run. There was a loud clunk as my blade collided with the chin hard. Before it was deflected, the monster was thrown off its initial course and rolled away to a stop. That was a no for hitting it normally then. It had to have a weak spot somewhere, but the question was where? I could only take so many more hits before my endurance was up, and the throb in my broken finger wasn't helping. The fate had started moving again, building up speed as I took a moment to think. If this thing was like a pill bug, then this was essentially its defensive mode. It had to be able to unfurl itself somehow, and maybe I could learn more that way. The weevil bolted towards me, seeming to aim for the side and do another attack from behind. I went to dodge, but it changed the direction of its body at the last minute. I went to dodge, but it changed the direction of its body at the last minute, rolling toward me. I managed to bring my sword up to block a direct impact to my body, but let out a cry of pain as the pressure on my broken finger built, and I was knocked flat onto the ground, the sword falling from my hands. But before I could react, the monster was on me in an instant. It launched upwards again, then unfurled with a dramatic screech. Time seemed to stop as it hung above me, suspended in midair. And I may have to save it there because I know the video's getting a bit long, so to be continued! Will Xavier manage to fend off this threat? Will Xavier have to move on to a new traveling companion? Find out next time on One Last Night. I guess. I don't know. Yeah, sorry I had to cut this short. But thank you guys for watching. I'm glad I could finally get back into this. Loving the new art and the CGs. So, yeah, just gonna get into some more recording. Hopefully this will be up later this week. I forget if I said this already, but thank you guys for watching. I really hope you liked it. You know about the whole subscribing and liking if you did. I'd appreciate it very much. I love reading any comments and suggestions for other novels. I think I'm gonna start Liar very soon. But anyway, all that said and done, thanks again for watching. I hope you guys have a good night, a good evening, a good morning, whatever it is for you. And we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye now.